Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. The wind howled across the barren expanse, sweeping fine white sand over jagged rock formations that rose like the broken ribs of some long-dead giant. The air was thin, dry, laced with an unnatural chill, the kind that settled deep into the bones. Nights were always cold on K729, a planet so inhospitable even the simplest microbial life struggled to survive. Ewan Cook adjusted his visor, feeling the familiar stiffness of his old combat suit as it compensated for the drop in temperature. His boots crunched over the frozen sand as he made his way back to camp, where the dull glow of portable floodlights cast long, flickering shadows over the prefab research outpost. "Any luck?" Reese Alcock's voice crackled over the comm, casual but laced with underlying fatigue. "Negative," Ewan replied. "Surface scans came back clean. No water pockets, no anomalies. Just rock and more rock." "Sounds about right," Reese muttered. Another exciting day in the ass end of the galaxy. Inside the outpost, Alicent Darcy was hunched over a terminal, working the holographic interface. Her blonde hair was tied back in a practical knot, her sharp green eyes scanning the biosensor readings with cool, focused precision. "You're back early," she noted, not looking up. "Wasn't much to find," Ewan admitted, setting his rifle on the rack by the entrance. "Sand, rock, and disappointment." "Well," Reese said from his station, "at least that confirms what the last 5 scans told us." Ewan was about to retort when a sharp beep cut through the stale air. A crimson light flickered on Reese's console, irregular, pulsing, an incoming transmission. "Hold on," Reese muttered, adjusting the frequency. His usual relaxed demeanor tensed as the data stream translated across his screen. "We're picking up something." Alicent turned to face him fully now, her brows furrowing. "A signal?" "Yeah, but it's weird. Encrypted. Alien origin. Definitely not standard Alliance channels." Ewan stepped closer, watching the data scroll across the terminal. "Source?" Reese ran a quick triangulation. His expression darkened. "Roughly 16 clicks east. No registered structures, no settlements, nothing." "Then where the hell is it coming from?" Alicent asked. The signal repeated, a desperate rhythmic call buried under layers of static. There was no mistaking it, a distress beacon. For a moment, none of them spoke. "Could be a trap," Reese said finally. Ewan's tone was quiet but certain. "Or someone really needs help." He turned back to the weapons rack, retrieving his rifle and securing it to his back. Reese sighed, leaning back in his chair. "You're actually going out there, aren't you?" "You got a better idea?" Ewan asked, securing the fastenings on his armor. "Yeah, not walking into an obvious death zone." Ewan smirked. "You know what they say about old Marines?" Reese rolled his eyes. Yeah, they're old for a reason." "And you ever get tired of that line?" "Not really," Ewan replied, stepping toward the garage where the POD, a small, fast recon vehicle, was docked. Alicent crossed her arms. "Be careful, Cook." "Always," he said, climbing into the cockpit. The engine thrummed to life, and within seconds, the pod shot out into the dark. The terrain blurred beneath him as the pod weaved through the rocky landscape, its headlights cutting through the dust-laden air. The signal grew stronger, guiding him toward a narrow valley flanked by towering cliffs. Then he saw it. The ground ahead was scarred, charred black with the unmistakable remnants of an aerial bombardment. Twisted wreckage jutted out from the sand, fragments of ships, their hulls seared and broken, a cockpit, sheared clean in half, still flickered with the dying glow of a shattered console. A severed limb, alien and rigid with death, protruded from the debris like a warning. The wind howled through the wreckage, carrying the scent of scorched metal and something darker, something organic. Ewan slowed the pod, scanning the area. "Reese, Alicent, you getting this?" he said over the comm. "Loud and clear," Reese replied, voice tight. "That's a battlefield. Looks recent." Ewan stepped out of the pod, rifle in hand, moving cautiously through the wreckage. The destruction was total. Whoever had been here hadn't just been attacked. They'd been obliterated. Then his HUD flashed. "Got something," he muttered, adjusting his visor. His scanner highlighted a faint energy signature, weak but present. He followed the signal deeper into the debris until he saw it. A half-buried structure, its reinforced exterior camouflaged beneath layers of sand and metal shards. A bunker. Ewan approached carefully, pressing a gloved hand against the sealed entry panel. A faint reading pulsed from within. Life signs. "Reese, I've got survivors." Static crackled for a moment before Reese's voice came through. "Copy that. We're inbound." Ewan glanced up at the sky, the oppressive darkness stretching endlessly above. A deep unease settled in his gut. Something about this didn't sit right. The research outpost's dropship cut through the sky, landing amidst the wreckage with efficiency. Reese and Allison disembarked immediately, moving toward the bunker where Ewan waited. "Let's get this open," Ewan said, shouldering his rifle. Reese knelt by the console, working quickly over the damaged interface. "Looks like it's been locked from the inside. Whoever's in there didn't want company." Allison moved to his side, examining the outer structure. "Blast marks. Someone tried to force their way in. Didn't succeed," Ewan noted grimly. "But they made sure no one could get out either." Reese cursed under his breath as sparks flew from the console. "Manual override is fried. We'll have to do this the old-fashioned way." Ewan nodded. "Stand back." With a controlled step forward, he placed a shaped charge against the door's locking mechanism and primed the detonator. 3, 2, 1. The explosion was sharp, precise. The bunker's door groaned as it slid open fully, revealing the dim interior where the alien survivors huddled in the shadows. The air inside was thick with the metallic scent of scorched electronics and the acrid tang of burned materials. Some of the aliens flinched at the sudden exposure to light, their thin, ridged bodies trembling from exhaustion and injury. Ewan stepped inside, his rifle lowered, but ready. Allison stepped forward, her rifle raised, visor adjusting to the dim light. Inside, figures huddled against the walls. Aliens, their bodies weakened, their breathing ragged. They were tall, slender, with elongated limbs and ridged, chitinous plating across their bodies. Their eyes, large and glassy, reflected the dim light. Some were slumped over, unconscious. Others barely stirred. She knelt beside one of the more severely injured aliens, carefully helping them to their feet. Their body was frail, their chitinous exoskeleton dull and cracked. The alien let out a weak, warbling sound, perhaps gratitude, perhaps pain. One, however, pushed himself up, his limbs shaking. His voice came in broken, gasping tones. "Help! Us!" Allison immediately moved to check his vitals. "They're dehydrated, malnourished. Some have burns. Bad ones." Ewan turned, scanning the others. "These aren't soldiers. This was a slaughter." Reese's console chirped, an alert. Ewan saw the look on his face and knew it was bad. "Tell me." "Movement in orbit," Reese said. "Small fleet. They're scanning the surface." Ewan stiffened. "Did you send any signals?" Reese shook his head. "No, nothing." From the shadows of the bunker, one of the aliens looked up, his already pale skin draining of color. His voice was a whisper, choked with fear. "They found us." Ewan turned sharply. "Who?" The alien swallowed hard. "They came back." "We need to move them now," Allison said, urgency in her tone. "Some of them won't make it if we waste time." Reese was already outside, prepping the ship's cargo bay for evac. "I'm unlocking the docking ramp. Get them inside fast." Ewan led the first group out of the bunker. As soon as the cold night air hit them, the aliens recoiled, their bodies clearly unaccustomed to the exposure. The desert wind howled around them, kicking up dust that clung to their already fragile forms. "Stay close," Ewan barked, guiding them toward the ship. The first few made it aboard quickly, their movements sluggish but determined. Reese helped them inside, sealing the ramp behind each wave. The last alien, the one who had spoken earlier, hesitated at the threshold. His dark, glassy eyes flicked toward the sky, his mandibles twitching with something close to fear. "They will come," he whispered. Ewan grabbed his arm, pulling him inside. "Then let's make sure they don't find us." The ramp sealed behind them, and Reese darted toward the cockpit. "Starting pre-flight sequence. Get strapped in." Alicent worked quickly, securing the injured in the ship's hold. One of them collapsed, their breath shallow. She cursed under her breath and pressed a stabilizer injector against their thin forearm. Ewan dropped into the pilot's seat, hands moving on instinct as the ship roared to life beneath him. "Reese, tell me you're online." "Yeah, but we've got a problem." Reese's voice was sharp. "Sensors are picking up movement in orbit, and it's fast." Ewan's grip tightened on the controls. "How fast?" Reese cursed under his breath. "Faster than before. They're adjusting their search pattern, closing in on our position." One of the aliens, the same one who had warned them earlier, lifted his head weakly. His dark eyes flickered with alarm. "They are locking onto us." Ewan didn't hesitate. "Strap in. We're leaving. Now." The ship rumbled beneath their feet as the engines roared to life. Sand and debris whipped around the landing site, caught in the thruster's violent wake. Ewan gritted his teeth as he hauled the last of the wounded aliens into the hold, his muscles straining under the weight. "Reese, get us off the ground, now!" "Engines are hot. Thrusters at full burn. You're clear to lift," Reese shot back, working quickly over the console as he rerouted auxiliary power. "We don't have time to do a full system check, so let's just hope nothing critical explodes mid-flight." Ewan didn't need a second invitation. He gripped the controls and yanked the ship that lifted off in a violent burst. The wreckage below blurred as they ascended into the night sky, the distant glimmer of enemy ships already closing in. Alicent was already inside, crouched beside the group of aliens, administering basic medical aid. Their pale, chitin-plated bodies trembled under her hands, their wide, glassy eyes filled with exhaustion and fear. One of them, the one who had warned them earlier, struggled to sit up, his elongated limbs quivering from the effort. "They will not stop," he rasped, his voice rough, alien vowels warping through the ship's translator. "They will hunt us." "Yeah, well, they'll have to catch us first," Ewan shot back. "Multiple contacts incoming," Reese called, his voice sharp. "They're closing fast," Ewan swore under his breath, eyes flicking to the sensor readout. 6 ships, small attack craft, moving in a tight formation. "They're trying to box us in," he growled. "We have speed on them," Reese said, hands darting over the controls. "But if they land a good hit..." The entire ship jolted violently. Warning sirens blared. "Like that," Reese finished through clenched teeth. "Status?" Ewan demanded. "Shields are holding, but they tagged our aft stabilizer." "We're gonna have to compensate manually," Alicent's voice cut in over the comms. "One of the aliens is going into shock back here. I need more time to stabilize them. Not exactly something we can give you right now," Ewan muttered, gripping the controls tighter. Another impact rocked the ship, sending a shower of sparks raining from the overhead panels. "Shit, that was close," Reese hissed. "Engines are taking a beating." Ewan's jaw clenched as he pushed the ship into a hard dive, skimming dangerously close to the jagged terrain below. The attack craft followed, their plasma bolts scorching the ground in their wake. "We need reinforcements," Ewan said, slamming the ship into an evasive roll. "Get me Admiral Needham." Reese flicked the comms to secured frequency, static crackling for a moment before a gruff, authoritative voice cut through. "Cook, what the hell is going on?" "Admiral, we have a problem," Ewan said, voice steady despite the chaos. 6 hostiles in pursuit. Looks like they belong to our own damn alliance." There was a pause on the other end. Then, "Repeat that." "You heard me," Ewan growled. "These ships are running alliance formations. We are engaged and unable to make long jumps." The ship jolted again, alarms wailing. "That's because they just knocked out our damn jump drive," Reese barked. Long-distance travel is off the table. Understood. Needham's voice came, sharper now. I'm mobilizing a response fleet. Transmit your location. Ewan reached for the beacon. Then the first impact hit. The ship lurched violently, alarms wailing as the interior lights flickered. Ewan barely managed to keep control, his knuckles whitening over the controls. Reese, what the hell was that? Direct hit. Comms are still active, but shit, they're locking on again. Send the coordinates now, Ewan barked. Reese's hands flew over the console, opening the encrypted channel. Admiral, transmitting. A second explosion ripped through the hull, sending static shrieking through the cockpit. The console dimmed, flickered, then went black. Reese slammed his fist on the panel. They took out the comms relay. We're cut off. Allison's panicked voice came over the ship's internal line. We're losing pressure back here. Ewan fought with the controls, hands locked onto the thrusters, desperately trying to level their descent. Give me something, Reese. Main engine's compromised, but we're not dead yet, Reese shouted back, rerouting power. We still have maneuverability, but if they keep up that barrage... A low, wheezing voice interrupted them. One of the aliens, his dark, ridged eyes fixed on Ewan. There is... a station, he managed, each word strained. Not far. We may find safety. They are our friends. Ewan exchanged a glance with Reese. You heard him, Ewan said. Give me a heading. Reese checked the navigational grid. There's something about 40 clicks out. Scans show weak energy signatures, but it could be an old outpost. Ewan grimaced. It'll have to do. He yanked the controls hard, sending the ship into a rapid vector shift toward the unknown station. Plasma fire streaked past the cockpit, illuminating the night in flashes of searing white. The enemy ships pursued relentlessly. Hang on, Ewan muttered, his grip tightening on the controls. We're not dead yet. Not yet. The ship rattled violently as another near miss scorched past the hull. Alarms blared through the cockpit, the flashing red lights reflecting off Ewan's visor as he yanked the controls to the right, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. The enemy fighters were relentless, their formation tightening as they adapted to his maneuvers. Reese, tell me you've got something, Ewan barked, gritting his teeth as he forced the ship into another evasive roll. Almost there, Reese shouted back, his hands flying over the console. Running calculations for a short-range jump. The nav system's fried, so I'm doing this blind. Hold the damn ship steady. Allison's voice crackled through the internal comms. 2 more injured back here. I can keep them stable, but I need this ride to stop throwing me into walls. Ewan exhaled sharply. Just a little longer. His eyes flicked to the sensors. The enemy ships were closing, their formation shifting to cut off their escape vector. They had maybe a minute before the next volley. Reese! Done. Course locked. Jumping in 3, 2... The ship jolted violently as it was wrenched into the slipstream of a micro-jump, the fabric of space folding around them. The shaking was worse than normal, uncontrolled, and the ship groaned in protest. Then, as suddenly as it started, it was over. The black void of space snapped back into place, stars flickering in strange distortions outside the cockpit. Ewan barely had time to breathe before Reese cursed loudly. That was rough. Engines are overheating. We can't pull another one like that. How much distance did we gain? Ewan demanded. Reese checked the scanners, his expression tightening. Enough to make them rethink their pursuit, but not enough to shake them completely. They're recalibrating. They'll be right behind us in minutes. Ewan took a steadying breath and glanced at the nav display. The waypoint to the station was still ahead, a few more short jumps away. His fingers flexed against the controls. All right, we do it again. Reese whipped his head toward him. We barely held together that time. You want to try that again? We're going to fry something important. Allison's voice was tense. He's right, Ewan. We have too many wounded. The ship can't take much more. Ewan clenched his jaw. We don't have a choice. If they catch us, we're dead. Reese hesitated, then swore under his breath. All right. Give me a minute to cool the drives. We might get one more short jump, but that's it. The ship surged forward, tearing through the emptiness of space. Behind them, the enemy formation flickered on the scanners, closing in again. Ewan could almost feel the heat of their weapons priming. "Reese, got it! Engaging now!" The second jump was just as rough as the first, the ship groaning as it fought against the strain. When they emerged, the station was finally visible in the distance, a dark silhouette against the scattered stars. "There it is!" Reese shouted. "We made it!" Ewan didn't celebrate. He was already flipping the comms to open a frequency. "Unidentified station, this is Lieutenant Ewan Cook, UED Marine Corps. We are requesting emergency docking authorization. Do you read?" For a moment, only static. Then a harsh voice cut through. "Unidentified vessel, you are approaching restricted airspace. State your business immediately." Ewan exhaled. "We have wounded, including civilians from a destroyed colony. We are under pursuit. Hostile forces will be here soon." Silence. Reese glanced at him. "They don't sound thrilled." Then the reply came, colder this time. "You are not registered in our system. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Ewan tensed. "That's not an option. We need immediate—" The alien they had rescued, the one who had guided them here, suddenly forced himself upright in the hold. His breathing was ragged, his injuries severe, but there was a fire in his dark eyes. "This is Varak, son of Talos," he said, his voice straining through the translator. "My people are aboard. You will grant them sanctuary." A long pause. Then finally the station commander's voice returned, hesitant now. "Varak, by the stars you live." Varak coughed, gripping his side. "Not for long if you do not let us in." Another silence, but this time, it wasn't hesitation. It was realization. "Understood. Lowering shields. Proceed to docking bay 12. Ewan exhaled in relief, but it was short-lived. "Incoming signatures," Reese shouted. "They're here!" The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace just as the station came into full view. "Too late to dock," Ewan growled. "We fight." The station's defenses powered up as the battle erupted. The first blast struck just as Ewan jerked the ship into a tight evasive roll. The energy shields flared, absorbing the impact, but the shockwave rattled through the hull. Red warning indicators flooded the cockpit, and Reese cursed as he scrambled to stabilize the systems, working fast to keep everything from overloading. "They're cutting off our approach," Reese shouted. "Shields at 60%. We won't last in open space for long." Ewan gritted his teeth, pushing the ship into a hard dive. Below them, the station's defense turrets whirred to life, automated cannons swiveling to track the incoming hostiles. The first defensive volleys lashed out, beams of concentrated plasma slicing through the void. One of the enemy fighters took a direct hit, its hull rupturing before it spiraled into oblivion. The comms crackled to life with a voice from the station. "Defensive grid online. Hold your position, unidentified vessel. We're deploying countermeasures." "We don't have a position to hold," Ewan shot back, banking hard to avoid another barrage. The enemy ships moved in flawless coordination, their formation shifting like a tightening noose. "We need room to maneuver." The station's response was immediate. A squadron of sleek, silver-hulled interceptors launched from one of the lower bays, their thrusters burning bright as they streaked toward the battlefield. Their design was different from the attackers, sleeker, more agile. Reese exhaled. "That's our backup." "About damn time," Ewan muttered, flipping the ship around to engage. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Ewan pulled the ship into a sharp arc, coming in behind one of the enemy craft. "Locking target! Firing!" The railgun spat molten tungsten into the void. The rounds slammed into the enemy's aft thrusters, tearing through armor plating. The ship sputtered, trying to stabilize before one final shot from the station's cannons ripped it apart. "Allied squadron is engaging," Reese reported. "They're keeping them off our backs, but these bastards aren't breaking formation." Allison's voice came through, tense but focused. "One of the wounded aliens just said something. They will not retreat. They are ordered to finish this." Ewan's gut twisted. That meant no survivors. The station's commander came over the comms. "We are mobilizing our primary strike force. Continue evasive maneuvers until we push them back. Another wave of ships launched from the station, heavier gunships moving into position. They advanced in a tight formation, picking off enemy fighters with pinpoint precision. Reese scanned the battlefield, eyes narrowing as he worked the console. This isn't a standard skirmish. They're pressing hard, but it's not just aggression, it's discipline. Ewan dodged another barrage. What are you thinking? Reese adjusted his visor, analyzing energy signatures from the wreckage. I think we need to take a closer look at these ships. The battle raged on as Reese and Alicent worked quickly. The wreckage of an enemy fighter tumbled through space, still partially intact. Their ship's grappling field latched onto it, pulling the twisted hull closer. Bringing it into scanning range, Reese muttered. This shouldn't take long. Alicent leaned over his shoulder. Check the weapons logs first. Reese nodded, scanning rapidly as data scrolled across the console. Ammunition stockpiles, targeting patterns, firing frequencies. Then he froze. This can't be right. Ewan, still piloting, glanced back. What? Reese enlarged the data display. These energy signatures, these weapons, they belong to a faction within our own damn alliance. Alicent's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Reese adjusted the output, filtering through the encoded signals. The verification was instant. He turned to Ewan, his expression grim. It's confirmed. This is Black Ops gear, restricted tech. Someone in the Alliance supplied these bastards. Ewan didn't hesitate. Transmit everything to the station. They need to see this. Alicent's hands moved to her earpiece. We should inform Needham. Ewan exhaled. We will. But first, we finish this fight. The battle shifted. The enemy ships, already outmatched, struggled to maintain their assault. One by one, they were picked apart, some taken down by precise cannon fire from the station, others shredded by the interceptors maneuvering through their ranks. Explosions lit up the void as the last of them was obliterated, leaving only debris drifting in the dark. The station commander's voice returned over comms. Enemy force eliminated. Confirming battlefield control. Ewan finally allowed himself to breathe. That's one problem down. Reese ran one last diagnostic. And one much bigger one waiting for us. Ewan switched frequencies. Station command, we need to dock, now. Understood. Docking Bay 12 is clear. As the ship approached, Ewan turned to his crew. His voice was quiet, but resolute. This isn't over. The docking clamps locked into place with a heavy clang, and the ship finally settled onto the reinforced deck of Outpost Theta. Ewan sat back, jaw tight, the tension still radiating through his body. The battle had drained them, but they had no time to recover. Reese, get the system stable. Alicent, make sure the wounded are secured, Ewan ordered, as he unstrapped himself from the pilot's seat. Reese barely glanced up from his console. Already on it. Power relays took a hit, but nothing I can't patch together. Alicent was already moving, checking the condition of the rescued aliens. Their leader, Varric, weakly lifted his head. His voice was strained. We owe you our lives. Ewan gave a curt nod. Stay here. We need to deal with something first. He strode down the ramp, stepping into the stark metallic corridors of the station. The air was thick with tension. Soldiers moved with urgency. Station crew relaying orders as engineers scrambled to reinforce the defenses. The scars from the battle were still fresh. A figure was waiting for them at the end of the hallway. A broad-shouldered alien with deep crimson scales, standing tall in a crisp military uniform. Commander Jalek Varkal. His reptilian eyes locked onto Ewan with a mixture of suspicion and urgency. You brought trouble to my doorstep, human, Jalek said, his voice a deep, guttural growl. Ewan wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. We saved your people. That's why we're here. Jalek's gaze flicked toward the docking bay, where medics were tending to the injured aliens. His expression shifted slightly before he spoke. Come with me. Ewan followed without another word, Reese and Alicent close behind. They entered a secure operations room where a large holographic display flickered with battlefield data. Jalek gestured toward a comm station. "Your admiral has been trying to reach you," he said. Ewan wasted no time. He activated the comms, and within seconds, the grizzled face of Admiral Otto Needham filled the screen. His expression was a mixture of relief and irritation. "Cook, report." Ewan straightened. "Admiral, we have a serious problem. The attack on the settlement, on these people, it wasn't random. The weapons, the tactics, they belong to the Alliance." Needham's face darkened. "Explain." Reese stepped forward, transferring the data they had recovered. "Sir, these weapons have Alliance military signatures, Black Ops gear. There's no chance these attackers got them without inside help." Needham studied the data in silence for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was colder than before. This just became a whole different kind of war. Ewan clenched his fists. "What's our move?" Needham's answer was immediate. "You return to Central Command. We take this to the Council." Before Ewan could respond, alarms erupted across the station. Jalek snapped toward a nearby officer. "Report!" A technician's voice cut through the noise. "Multiple hyperspace signatures inbound!" Ewan's gut twisted. "How many?" Alicent was already scanning the data as it streamed in. Her fingers tensed over the console. This can't be right," she muttered. Reese looked at her sharply. "How many, Alicent?" She swallowed hard, eyes locked on the display. "Too many." A new, urgent voice crackled over the station's intercom. "Enemy fleet incoming. We are outnumbered." Ewan turned back to the comms, his voice tight. "Admiral, we have company." Needham's face remained unreadable, but his tone carried the weight of command. "Hold the line. I'll send help." The transmission cut out, the Admiral's image fading into static. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Jalek stepped forward, his posture rigid, eyes locked on the tactical display. "We will hold as long as we can. Our defenses are active, and I am deploying all available fighters to the front line. I am also sending a distress call. We will not stand alone." Ewan gave a sharp nod. "That's what I needed to hear." Reese looked at him, realization dawning. "Wait, you're going out there alone." Ewan didn't answer immediately. He turned to Alicent and Reese. "If I take you with me, we all die. Stay here. Help them however you can." Alicent exhaled sharply but didn't argue. "Then you better make it back." Ewan clasped Reese's shoulder briefly, then turned and sprinted toward the docking bay. "You know what they say about old Marines, right?" Reese exhaled, shaking his head. "Yeah, they're old for a reason. Just try to stay that way." Alicent folded her arms. "And come back with that reason still intact." The station trembled under the first wave of enemy fire. Through the viewport, hyperspace ruptures tore open the void. A second fleet emerging, far larger than the first. Ewan climbed into his ship, sealing the hatch behind him. Systems flared to life as enemy targeting locks blinked red on his HUD. "All right," he muttered, gripping the controls. "Let's give them a reason to regret this." As his ship roared out of the station, the battle had already begun. The instant Ewan's ship cleared the docking bay, hell erupted around him. Plasma fire rained down like a relentless storm, hammering the station's shields, which flared under the overwhelming pressure. The defense grid fought back, automated turrets unleashing streams of energy across the void, but the sheer volume of enemy fire was too much. The station's protective barrier flickered violently, warning indicators flashing red across Ewan's HUD. Then, a coordinated strike hit. A devastating explosion tore through one of the station's gun emplacements, sending jagged metal debris spiraling into the void. The station shuddered under the impact, and the defenses stuttered for a brief moment, just long enough for the enemy to push forward. "Station control, I hope you've got some fight left," Ewan growled, weaving between bursts of plasma fire. Commander Jalek's voice came through, strained but focused. They're overwhelming us. Shields at 40%. We won't hold much longer. A second detonation rocked the station. Ewan saw it happen in real time. Another turret ripped apart, sending flaming wreckage careening into space. He clenched his jaw. Not on my watch. Shoving the throttle forward, he dived straight into the oncoming wave of enemy fighters. His railguns roared, unleashing a barrage of tungsten rounds. One enemy craft burst apart instantly, shrapnel scattering in all directions. Another took a hit to its wing, spiraling out of control before slamming into the wreckage of the destroyed turret. Ewan jerked the controls hard, positioning himself between the station and the fighters. He wasn't just fighting. He was shielding them, forcing the enemy to go through him first. The attackers adjusted. A squadron of enemy fighters broke formation, sweeping low to target the station's weakened flanks. Ewan saw the maneuver too late. A pair of strike bombers zeroed in on an exposed section of the hull, preparing to launch high-yield torpedoes. Not happening, Ewan muttered, twisting into pursuit. He lined up his shot and fired. A direct hit. One of the bombers detonated mid-flight, its payload igniting before it could reach the station. The second veered off, but not before launching its torpedo. Ewan gritted his teeth, pushing his ship to its limits. He barreled toward the projectile, weapons locking on. One shot. His railgun fired a tungsten round directly into the torpedo. The resulting explosion sent a shockwave rippling through his ship, the impact slinging him off course. Alarms shrieked in protest, and Ewan's vision blurred as he struggled to stabilize. Then the lock-on alarm blared. He only had a fraction of a second to react before plasma bolts slammed into his rear shields. The entire frame rattled violently, sparks spitting from the console as warning indicators flashed across his HUD. Shit! 3 enemy fighters had broken formation, hunting him specifically. Cook, our shields are down to 35%. Jalek's voice cut through the chaos. Ewan forced his ship into an erratic roll, trying to shake them, but they were too fast, coordinated, relentless. His shields flared under another impact. He was running out of options. The station was crumbling under the sheer weight of the attack. Structural integrity failing, shield output dropping, weapons overheating. The station's defense squadrons, outnumbered and battered, fought desperately to hold the line. But they were losing ships fast. Ewan tightened his grip on the controls. If reinforcements didn't arrive now, there wouldn't be anything left to save. Then the comms crackled with static, and a new voice cut through the chaos. This is Captain Kristen Frankel of the Rhadamanthys. Contact in 10 seconds. Let's end this. Ewan's breath caught. Then space lit up. A massive rupture split the void, and the Rhadamanthys burst out of hyperspace, a towering warship, its hull bristling with weaponry. And it wasn't alone. An entire fleet emerged behind it, cruisers, destroyers, fighter squadrons, all bearing the unmistakable insignia of the United Earth Defense. The enemy formation faltered. Then the Rhadamanthys opened fire. Hypervelocity cannons roared, launching kinetic slugs the size of small cars. The first volley tore through the enemy's larger ships, rupturing hulls and sending debris scattering like shrapnel. Railgun fire followed, tearing apart their formations before they could regroup. The UED fleet's fighter squadron surged forward, tearing into the enemy's disorganized ranks. Ewan exhaled sharply, resetting his targeting. About time. The battle shifted instantly. The hunters became the hunted. Enemy ships broke formation, attempting to retreat. But the Rhadamanthys' fleet cut off their escape routes. One by one, hostile ships were decimated. Minutes passed, like an eternity. Then, silence. The battlefield was nothing but debris. The few remaining enemy ships jumped to hyperspace, fleeing the slaughter. Ewan finally relaxed his grip on the controls. The comms crackled again. Cook, you still alive? Frankel's voice carried a smirk. Ewan let out a breath. Alive, for now. Frankel chuckled. Return to the station. We'll hold position until we're sure the area is secure. Ewan turned his ship toward the station, the wreckage of their enemies drifting lifelessly in the void. As he approached, He could still see the scorched battle scars across the station's hull. They had survived, but something told him this wasn't over yet. The ship shuddered violently as Ewan guided it back toward the station, dodging the lingering debris from the battle. Smoke still curled from the wreckage of destroyed enemy ships, their shattered hulls drifting aimlessly in the void. The Rhadamanthys fleet remained in formation, a silent show of dominance, its massive warships holding the line around the station. Ewan flexed his hands, stiffness biting through his gloves after gripping the controls too long. The damage was extensive. The hull was scorched from glancing plasma fire, stabilizers barely functional, and the shield array flickered with low energy readings. He angled the ship toward the docking bay, following the remaining Allied fighters and patrol craft already returning from the battlefield. The station's hangar field flickered as he crossed the threshold, and his landing struts touched down with a dull metallic thud. The engines whined as they powered down, the vibrations settling into silence. The hatch hissed open, releasing a burst of stale, overheated air. Rhys and Alicent were already moving toward him. Rhys let out a slow whistle as he looked over the damage. "Damn, Cook. You sure you didn't fly through the inside of a star?" Alicent's eyes flicked over him, assessing. "You look like hell." Ewan smirked tiredly. "Feel worse?" He patted the side of the ship. "And this thing's barely holding together." Rhys snorted, running a diagnostic scan on the hull damage. "Yeah, I can see that. You nearly burned out the stabilizers, the shields are running on fumes, and what the hell did you do to the comms relay?" Ewan stepped past him. "Kept us alive." Rhys muttered something under his breath, already pulling up repair logs. Alicent folded her arms, glancing toward the viewport. Outside, the UED fleet hovered like silent sentinels, their weapons idle but ready. "This doesn't feel like a victory." Ewan followed her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Well, we're alive. That's all that matters now." Inside the station's control center, the air was thick with tension. Officers moved quickly between holodisplays, technicians relaying battlefield data while repair crews worked to stabilize the station's critical systems. At the center of it all stood Commander Jalek Varkal, his crimson-scaled form illuminated by the glow of tactical readouts. His reptilian eyes tracked every report, his rigid stance betraying exhaustion beneath his disciplined exterior. Ewan approached with measured steps, his boots echoing against the reinforced metal flooring. Jalek turned to face him, studying him for a long moment before speaking. "Your people fight harder than I expected, Cook." Ewan crossed his arms, his expression unwavering. "You haven't seen anything yet." Jalek's gaze flicked toward the viewport, where new ships flickered into existence, emerging from hyperspace one by one. For a brief moment, tension flickered across his face, until the scanner confirmed their identity. Allied signatures. Jalek watched in silence as the Allied cruisers moved into formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of the system's sun. The officers around them visibly relaxed, shoulders easing as the battlefield shifted from a war zone to a secure perimeter. Jalek gave a small nod. "Our reinforcements have arrived." Ewan took in the sight, allowing himself the briefest moment of relief. Behind him, Rhys's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Ship's patched up enough to fly, but the drive core's still unstable. Long jumps are off the table." Ewan turned back to Jalek, his expression set. "We need to leave, but we'll need a ride." Jalek studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "You're taking this to the Council." Ewan's jaw tightened. "We have no choice." Jalek's golden eyes narrowed slightly, something calculating in his expression. Then, with a curt nod, he extended his clawed hand. "Then speak the truth, and make them listen." Ewan clasped his wrist briefly, a warrior's acknowledgement, before stepping away. As he strode toward the docking bay, he activated his comms, switching to the Rhadamanthys channel. "Rhadamanthys, this is Lieutenant Cook. We'll need a lift." The hangar was calm now, a stark contrast to the chaos of battle just hours before. The emergency repairs had been completed, and medical teams moved efficiently between the injured, tending to the worst cases first. Beyond the station, the newly arrived reinforcement fleet maintained a defensive perimeter, ensuring that no new threats would break through. Commander Jalek Varkal stood near the central platform, watching as his officers relayed final status reports. His golden eyes flickered toward Ewan as he approached. "We will report this attack to the Tarak Shal High Council. Once we have secured our wounded, we will also travel to the Alliance's chambers," Jalek said, his voice firm. "This treachery will not be ignored." Ewan nodded. "Good. They need to see this for what it is." Before he could turn away, a familiar voice rose behind him. Varric, the alien who granted access to the station, stepped forward, his form still weak but steadier than before. His dark eyes locked onto Ewan, gratitude evident in his expression. "You gave us a chance to survive," he said, his voice rough but steady. "And for that, I owe you my life." Ewan studied him for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Then live it, and make sure your people know the truth." Varric placed a hand over his chest in a gesture of respect. "I will." With nothing more to say, Ewan turned back toward the docking bay, where Rhys and Alicent were waiting near their ship. "The Rhadamanthes is ready for departure," Rhys called out, closing the last system diagnostic. "We just need to move." Alicent secured the last of their encrypted data logs, ensuring that nothing was left behind. "Let's not keep them waiting." With one final glance at the station, Ewan led the way up the ramp. The ship lifted off moments later, smoothly exiting the hangar and making its way toward the massive warship waiting in the void. A short flight brought them into Rhadamanthes's main docking bay, where UED officers guided them into place. As soon as the landing struts locked in, Ewan unstrapped himself and activated his comms. "Admiral Needham, this is Cook. We're on board and en route." A moment later, the Admiral's voice came through, steady and commanding. "Understood, Lieutenant. The Chancellor and I are waiting. It's time to finish this." As the Rhadamanthes engaged its jump drives, the station and battlefield vanished into the abyss behind them. Ahead, the true fight awaited. The initiative hovered just beyond the perimeter of the Alliance Council station, its polished hull gleaming under the artificial light cast by the massive orbital structure. Inside the diplomatic vessel's bridge, Chancellor Sonoya Rankin stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the transmission feed flickering before him. Beside him, Admiral Otto Needham remained rigid, his face unreadable. Both men knew the weight of what they were about to demand. The holographic transmission engaged, revealing Councillor Kyle Vore, the leader of the Alliance Council. The Vartani's ashen-gray skin and elongated features remained impassive, his deep violet robes arranged in formal, flowing layers over his broad frame. Vore's thin, unblinking eyes focused on them, his voice a monotone hum. "Chancellor Rankin, Admiral Needham, your transmission is received." Rankin cut straight to the point. "Consular Vore, we are requesting an immediate session before the Council. A human vessel has been attacked by ships belonging to the Alliance fleet. We have irrefutable proof." Vore's expression didn't shift. "I understand the seriousness of your claim. Let's schedule your visit. A formal hearing can be—" Rankin didn't let him finish. "Good. We arrive in 5 minutes. Thank you for receiving us on such short notice, Councillor Vore." For the first time, Vore hesitated, his elongated fingers twitching slightly. A beat of silence. Then his head inclined in the smallest nod. "Very well. We will convene in 1 hour." The transmission cut out abruptly. Needham exhaled, arms still crossed. That was easier than expected. Rankin's jaw tightened, his gaze still locked on the looming station. They already know why we're here. 30 minutes later, the Rhadamanthes emerged from hyperspace, its warship frame cutting through the void like a blade. Behind it, a small detachment of escort vessels followed in perfect formation. Ewan sat in the cockpit, his eyes scanning the data stream as the massive station came into full view. Reese let out a low whistle. "I still say this place looks like a damn mausoleum." Alicent, seated beside him, didn't disagree. "It's designed for power, not welcome." Ewan kept his expression neutral. "It doesn't matter what it looks like. We're here to finish this." Inside the warship's command chamber, Ewan, Reese, and Alicent disembarked, following their escort toward the docking corridor of the Initiative. Rankin and Needham were already waiting. Rankin opened with a curt question. "You have everything?" Ewan nodded. "Everything that matters." Needham's eyes swept over them, his face hard to read. "Then let's go." Together, they moved through the security checkpoints, past the towering entrance gates of the Alliance Council Chamber. The Council Chamber was a vast coliseum of power, towering platforms suspended in a gravity field, each seat occupied by representatives of the galaxy's dominant species. The air was stale and cold. The sheer scale of the chamber meant to instill a sense of insignificance in those standing on the floor below. At the center, Kael Vor sat on an elevated dais, flanked by counselors from dozens of factions. His hands were folded neatly, his posture unmoving. His expression, as always, was stoic. As Ewan, Reese, and Alicent advanced to the designated presentation area, Chancellor Sonoya Rankin took a step forward, adjusting his cuffs before speaking. "Esteemed members of the Alliance Council, today we bring forth undeniable proof that forces within the Alliance orchestrated an unauthorized and deliberate attack. An attack that targeted civilians, exterminated entire settlements, and left survivors to be hunted down." His voice was even, controlled, yet it echoed through the silent chamber like a gunshot. "These are not accusations. These are facts, and the evidence will speak for itself." With that, he motioned toward the central interface, where Admiral Otto Needham executed the data transmission. The room dimmed. Holograms flickered to life. First came the intercepted communication logs, encrypted messages between high-ranking Alliance officers, directing the unauthorized strike on the alien settlement. Then, weapon signatures, confirming that the ships involved belonged to a classified division of the Alliance military, their existence never acknowledged publicly. Finally, the recordings of the survivors, footage of burned-out structures, bodies twisted in unnatural angles, voices recounting the slaughter. The chamber fell silent. Ewan scanned the room. Some factions shifted uncomfortably, others exchanged brief, unreadable glances, but no one protested. No one called the evidence into question. They already knew. Ewan's hands clenched. The silence dragged on too long. He took a step forward. "That's it? That's all you've got?" No response. Reese's eyes narrowed, his gaze flicking toward the side monitors. Some data streams had been cut mid-feed. He muttered under his breath. "They're trying to control the information." Alicent crossed her arms, scanning the faces before her. There was no outrage, no denial, just calculation. Ewan's pulse pounded in his ears. His fists clenched at his sides as he locked eyes with Vor, his voice controlled but seething. "You already knew." The Vartani president didn't move, didn't blink. Chancellor Rankin took another step forward, his voice sharp. "This council has a duty to respond to what has been presented. There will be an inquiry into this, and those responsible will be held accountable." A slight flicker ran through the communication interface. Then the sound cut out. The microphone's transmission died instantly. A light on the council's central interface pulsed once. The session was over. The chamber's communication relays cut out instantly. Internal signals terminated without explanation. Security personnel stepped forward, their presence an unspoken order. The humans were being escorted out. They didn't resist. They didn't need to. As they walked through the corridors of the station, the silence between them felt heavier than the war they had just survived. Reese was the first to break it, his voice low, but weighted. They knew. Alicent just nodded, nothing more needed to be said. At the threshold of the chamber doors, Ewan stopped, turning back one last time. His cold, steady gaze met Vor's impassive one. "This isn't over." Vor said nothing. He didn't need to. The doors sealed shut behind them. Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, and one last thing.